All right. Well, hello, everybody that is visiting the Biz Weekly website here. Today's topic on the webinar is Smart Tan ROI. In other words, the Smart Tan convention is coming up in about 5 weeks, I think, October 7th through the 9th. And do you have your plans together to get your money's worth? And that's the thing. We all know that trade shows are not cheap to attend, but they can be very powerful in what you can get out of them. And of course, the big show, and maybe one of the only shows this year, well, actually the only national show this year, is the Smart Tan, which is, I don't know how many years this has been going on now. I mean, I was just saying that I think I went to one 20 years ago. It might have been under a different name, but it's been a long time. So anyway, we've got a lot of good information for you. I want to introduce the folks that are with me on this call today, and that is we have Ribby, I apologize for this. I did not realize your picture slid off the cracker there. But I've got John, who is our editor-in-chief of Biz Weekly. John, welcome to the webinar.
Hello, everybody.
And, of course, Mr. Chris Cummins, who is the Director of Marketing and Communications for Smart Tan. So, boy, what a assembled talent here. And, of course, down the lower corner, you have me, the old fart, and but we're going to get into a lot of stuff here about the show that's coming up. In my career now, which is 26 years in tanning, but also I graduated, and I think Chris and I were talking about this earlier. Chris, by the way, John, is a graduate of Michigan State. He's a Spartan.
Oh, okay.
Where did you
I'm
go
a
to
chip.
school, John?
Oh, nice.
CMU, I'm a chip.
You're a chip, Chris is a Spartan, and I'm a Gopher. And I think if the three of them got involved in a game of soccer or football, I have a feeling that Michigan State would win.
Probably.
Well, I don't think it'd be my Minnesota Gophers. So, okay. So anyway, we've got a lot to cover here, and so let's get going here. Let me, if I can get this thing to work. Okay. So how should I prepare? Somebody is reading this. How should I prepare for the big show and the steps to take? Well, on the left, one of the questions is what can improve your salon business from 2016? And what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go through just a couple slides here, Chris, and then we're going to let you kind of brag about what you and your compatriots have put together as far as the show. So the question is, what can you improve your salon business from 2016? And before you do, you go to the show, do an evaluation on your 2016 peak season. So in general, I tell people before you go to the show, look at your sales compared to peak of 2015. Are you up, down, how much? This is like going to the doctor's office, getting your blood pressure taken, and your temperature, and reading the body language of your business, because there's a lot of tumult going on out there and a lot of people looking for answers. And Chris, your show might be just the very thing that they need to give them the answers that can help their business going into 2017. Another thing is, how many unique or individual tanners do you tan? Is your tan count up or down? Your lotion products averages, is that up or down? And most critical, what percentage of your revenues are EFTs? Now, I hope, Chris, and I'll let you comment on this. I don't know if you know a lot about the content of the sessions. We certainly will have them listed here for people, but I sure would hope that someone is going to talk up the beauty of EFTs.
Absolutely. That's been a huge thing for years. That's how salons have been surviving, and it gives you an opportunity to sell in more ways. You get to see the customer more often. So Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely are going to be covering that in a few sessions.
Well, Chris,
oh, great.
You sound like you should be giving the session on EFTs. Well, and Chris, you really hit it, is that I think if you're not concentrating your business on EFTs, you're really kidding yourself about your future. And Chris, you may find this surprising. Maybe you won't. I know John won't, because John is in charge of all our editorial content at Biz Weekly, but because he hears this from me all the time. I cannot believe the people that come to me that either don't have an EFT program, they come to me for consulting advice, or they have an EFT program, they're doing maybe 10 or 15% of their revenues in EFT, and that's nuts. you got to be doing a lot more than that. We've got one client that's doing 50% of their revenues in EFTs, and that's like Chris, that's the way they're going to survive.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, especially in the off season, that's where your revenue is going to come from.
Amen, brother.
Absolutely.
It's the
Absolutely.
what we call the annuity effect, as opposed to selling sessions or visit packages. You want folks on EFTs, and there's a lot of things that we've come up with this year as far as selling more EFTs and also reducing the cancels, which is another part of the EFT equation. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, Chris, is I'm going to show everybody, this is numbers from peak season of 2016. This is through the end.
Hey, John,
and this
before you do that, I just want to make one comment about the things that you mentioned and why it's important that, especially for those new tanning salon owners who this might be their first or second trade show that they're attending. It's really important that you have these numbers and committed to memory these things that John mentioned, because when you're going to be talking to manufacturers and distributors and other salon owners, they're going to be asking you these questions.
Yes.
And this is how not only you can gauge your business, but if you're talking and networking with somebody that's, you know, willing to help you, having these numbers committed to memory will be good to share with those people so that you can get some vital feedback about your business.
Well, okay, I'm going to jump in on what you just said, John, because Chris, I want to tell you that, you know, Chris, one of the most powerful things from your show, not to take anything away from any of the particular sessions or some of the events that you've got, but one of the most powerful things from the show is when the attending retailers can share with other retailers. They can share information, because now Kaiser and Bender, who we'll talk about in a little bit, they're going to be doing a presentation again for you guys. They're excellent. I mean, they put on a tremendous presentation. They're really, really good. And you've got a lot of great presenters that are going to be giving information. But I'll tell you, it's one thing to listen to a person like that, but it's another thing, as John has talked about, to listen to another one of your peers in the business. You guys are talking about your tan count or your lotion products characterized as what we call LPPA, or you're talking about your uniques. I mean, you should, like John said, you should know this stuff by heart, and because you talk to other retailers, the retailers that are power retailers in this business, and just like John is saying, they know these numbers. You could wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they know their numbers to date. So
absolutely, you could walk up to a Mike Bloor or a Robbie Siegler or someone like that, and and ask them, were you down or up from last peak season? And like you said, they'll have that answer, and it'll be accurate.
Yes. I mean, you can ask them how their lotions are doing. You could ask them what percent of their revenues, their EFTs. They know it all by heart. And so this is what I was talking about. Now, this average, Chris, just so you know, this is from a big part of our client base, from East Coast to West Coast, North to South. So that with the numbers that are in here are an average. And as we all know in this business, average in the tanning business is a little bit spooky at times, because it's like having your head in the oven and your butt in the freezer. What does average mean? Because there's such extremes. You've got salons out there that are doing $750,000, $800,000 a year. You've got other salons that are doing $90,000 a year. And that guy that's doing 90,000 might be in Wind Rock, Montana. I don't know if there is such a place, but at 90,000, he and his wife are running the salon themselves, and they might still be making money. So not trying to pick on small salons. It depends on how they're run. They can still be profitable. But here's the numbers, and this is what you can look at. The average revenues for last year in our report for peak season, for this peak season 2016 is 187,000, and when you project that, it's about 294,000, or the rate. Now, this happens to be our client base, so we're not talking about the industry in general, but up about 20% over 2015. Per customer average, when you go to the show, talk to other people about their per customer average. If you're talking to somebody like the opening cocktail party, which is absolutely fabulous, Chris, what you guys have gone to with the big room. It used to be there with you remember, Chris, how the cocktail party used to be like a sardine can?
Yes.
Now, you guys, that room that you used last year or the year before, and I can't remember when you started using it, but when you changed, I think, hotels, but there's so much space in there. I mean, you can go around, you can meet everybody. I mean, there's a couple hundred people in there, but it looks like it's like, there's all kinds of space. You could dance in there if you want to. So, but the thing of it is, if you walk up to somebody and you want to talk about how they're doing with their business and they want to share with you, if they don't know their per customer average, then chances are you're not talking to somebody who's really tuned in to how they're going to make their business fly. So these are just super important numbers, and I'm not going to stay with the rest of them because for those of you that are going to be watching this, you can look at the numbers yourself because I want to get on to some other stuff here, and that is defy expectations. All right, Chris.
I like that.
You're the director of marketing communications. Did you come up with that theme?
I did.
You're kidding. Did you really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So really, the keynote we have this year is this world-renowned magician and entrepreneur. It's this really interesting guy. He has a huge following, has had really unsuccessful businesses, but also really successful businesses, so he kind of knows what to look out for. So we thought that theme worked really well. We want people kind of to defy their expectations for the show because it's going to be a little bit different than it has been in the past. We have this really entertaining guy to kick it off, but then also we want them leaving and really defying their own expectations for their business when they go back.
Well, I got to tell you,
Makes sense.
I got to tell you a little known trivia here, Chris. My son, David Farr, has been a professional illusionist since he was 11 years old, and he's 39 now. So he performed at Smart Tan, oh gosh, I'm going to say back 10 years ago or something like that. But he knows your magician, knows him pretty well. He's been at,
Awesome.
he was just at a big magicians convention out in Las Vegas. Oh gosh, this goes back maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and your guy was out there as well. So yeah, he says he's very good, and so you
he's
got
awesome.
a great show out of him. Well, anyway, so some of the things that we're going to talk about here as we go on is the details, and of course the link to registration, the cost of the hotels, and there's the 800 number. You can call to find out the cost and find out the if what hotels are left, I should say. And then now registration, I believe your early bird at 128 goes off on the 31st, Chris?
Yeah, it's 129. That ends on the 31st. Yep.
Okay. And then there is a special presentation, I think, is it Kaiser and Bender on Friday morning? No, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a full day session that Kaiser and Bender do. They've done that for us the past few years, and they come in. It's an all-day thing. You're going to get a booklet with all kinds of information you can take home, and they give you copies of their ebooks for free with that session, and it's like very in-depth, and you will leave there with things you can go and implement right away. So they do a great job at that.
Chris,
kind of like reading Biz Weekly.
There you go. There you go. Well, Chris, as a trade show speaker for 30-some years, whatever, I think you guys have done a really bright thing here because Kaiser and Bender years ago, when you guys would have them give a seminar, they'd be up on front of the group for maybe 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. And the problem is with the time that they had, they could only give people like a taste, and they would go back and have to do something that Kaiser and Bender motivated them to do, but they didn't have maybe enough to know how to do it. So I think what you guys are doing here is a great thing for everybody, and well worth the cost of going to that special presentation. Because you said they'll have hands-on stuff they can do. Maybe not quite as good as hiring yours truly as a consultant, but pretty darn good.
Yeah, and they're very involved with the industry. They work with a lot of salons, so it's not like they're just going to have general retail tips or general marketing tips. They know the industry really well. They know what things work, and they have lots of good examples of things that have worked for salons.
Yeah, they can.
Particularly, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Well, I was just impressed when Chris said that they're going to be giving out a lot of this take-home material, because one thing I know, I've written enough stories about the national trade shows. I've covered enough of the distributor symposiums to know that a lot of salon owners go to these events. They get all motivated. They get all worked up. They're ready. They're going to go home. They're going to take on the world. And then somehow between the time of getting motivated at the show and getting home, that energy gets lost. Right. And maybe also, some forgetfulness of, the things they wanted to implement or what have you. So I'm thinking that having that take-home material, Chris, that you mentioned, might be a huge help in keeping that momentum going forward for the attendees.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's because in the past, I think there were some handouts, but I don't think there was anything as specific as what you guys are doing. I think this is great. And I guess let's get into a little bit of the show schedule. Of course, there's the opening session, and this Justin, this renowned magician and entrepreneur. Have you watched him perform, Chris?
Yeah, he's amazing because he does this close-up magic, but he turns it into like this giant production. And he's really good at social media. So if you follow him on Twitter or Facebook, he just has constant videos where it's just letting you know what's going on in his life, but also just these amazing magic tricks. And the other thing about him is that he really develops a lot of magic tricks for other magicians. So
wow.
Like the guy that won America's Got Talent a couple of years ago, the magician, like he had developed a lot of his magic tricks.
So he's the magician's magician.
Right. So he's like a very well-respected guy in that circle. So it's gonna be really cool to have him there.
He's originally from Minnesota, right?
Yep. And then he moved down to Missouri for a while and opened up a magic theater, like a dinner theater type thing where they put on a show. You got dinner and a magic show. And then he did that for a while and then moved out to Vegas, and now he does these big tours and goes and performs magic for these giant events, much bigger than our event. So it's gonna be really cool to have him there.
I gotta drop a little trivia on it. Justin Flom's father is Rick Flom. He graduated from high school with me.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from Minneapolis, and so when I first saw the name, I asked David, the professional illusionist in my family. I said, is this guy? He doesn't happen to have a father, and we found out that he did. So, yeah, that's kind of weird, kind of strange small world. Well, you got
small world, yeah.
4 education tracks, Chris. Of course, marketing, and I love the sub topics here: marketing to millennials and Generation Z.
Yeah. So that's something that, especially last year, we realized that's just something that salons aren't maybe grasping as well as they could about how different it is to market to people in these generations as opposed to generations before. And that's actually a session led by Kaiser and Bender, so they put a lot of research into this over the years.
I think that's a very good point, Chris, and I'm actually glad to hear you guys are addressing this topic, because many years ago, during my early incarnations in the tanning industry, I noticed that the industry was basically still stuck in this mode of trying to market to boomers and Gen Xers, and really very little to nothing was being done to market tanning to Generation Y. And I mean, there was a bump or a spike in Generation Y tanners with the Jersey Shore craze, but that's not really, that's kind of crested since then in terms of it, the popularity of the TV show and all that.
Right.
So, it's kind of like, how do we market to Gen Y beyond Jersey Shore? And it sounds like you guys have that covered.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you this too, Chris. In the, I've given, over the years, I've given over 60 webinars, and I can't tell you all those. I've talked at every one of the trade shows, and millennials are, which of course, Chris, you're part of that. It is something that bedevils a lot of people, particularly owners. So it's good that Kaiser and Bender are going to be talking about that, because if you really get down to it and you study it, the millennials are not some strange creatures from Mars. I mean, they motivate and have issues and things that they aspire to, just like other generations. They just need to be understood in a different way. I mean, they certainly have a different way of expressing their lives than an old fart like me from the baby boomer generation. But and then I see that they're also going to be creating an effective marketing plan you're talking about to those generations.
Yeah, so another thing we were looking at as we were developing the schedule is that a lot of times salons, their marketing is just kind of on the seat of their pants. It's not really planned out ahead of time. They don't really look at what they did last year to see what worked and see what they want to implement this year. So yeah, they're going to sit down and let salons know the most effective way to plan that out and do it with a purpose as opposed to just hoping that it works out in the end.
How much is going to be covered about the importance of branding marketing? Do you know?
Yep, that's going to be important in both of those sessions, and really will be highlighted in that Friday session that they do. That's the best asset you could have is that brand. So
yes,
yeah, they really focus on that.
Well, and Chris,
unfortunately, this industry oftentimes neglects the branding, especially at like the small mom and pop salon levels, and they, because everybody wants the call to action because you can measure it. But one good way to measure branding is if nobody's heard of you, you're not doing a good job with your branding. So right. I'm glad to hear that you guys are covering that because it's very important and oftentimes overlooked in our industry.
Well, and John, where that's particularly a poignant subject is that there's a lot of concern out there, Chris, from salon owners, particularly the independents, about what to do with the expansion and the growth of fitness centers and offering what is, relatively cheap tanning, particularly at level one. And they offer it for 2 or 3 different levels. So, yeah, I mean, if I go along with what both of you are saying about the importance of branding now, because, it's not that we're adding more unique tanners at a double-digit pace anymore. I mean, we're
right.
Not exactly a zero-sum game, but it's not getting any better maybe than that. And so branding, you've got to be the brand that everybody thinks of when they think about getting tanned.
Right.
Absolutely.
You want to take those tanners away from those other places. We really we're moving customers around a lot these days.
That's the truth. Okay. Well, and I know that you've got a sales track, the sales process and restructuring your lotion sales process. Boy, if that isn't important, I don't know what is. I mean, the sales process is incredibly important. We have, I know the webinar and the seminar I do is talking about what we call the 30-second syndrome. And that's unfortunately, that's the extent of the sales process in a lot of a lot of salons across the country. We've done, Chris, over the last 4.5 years at my company, we've done more than 600 secret shops. And generally they come back that the sales process is the 30-second syndrome. Somebody comes in the door and, hello, how are you today? Last name. Okay, you're in bed number 5, 9 minutes. Is that good? Okay, ready to go. 30 seconds from the time they step in the door until they're in the tanning room. Nothing's been said about eyewear or lotions or where they're at with their tanning plans. Nothing. So I'm hoping.
No attempt at upselling.
Yeah. Oh.
There's like no attempt at upselling them in that scenario that you proposed. Yeah.
Well, part of it. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So for this session, we worked with some salons to kind of put together an actual sales process that we found has worked really well, and the key to it is that it's really easy for employees to implement because that ends up being such a barrier is that the employees that we typically see in salons aren't like seasoned salespeople, but we want them to act like seasoned salespeople. So we've put together this process that really is simple for them to use and ends up being really effective to get people into a higher level of membership, to purchase a bunch of products right at that activation of membership, and then to easily be able to upsell them when they come back in more regularly because you have them as members.
Well, that's
so
good.
Chris, if I'm I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, if I'm understanding you correctly, Chris, in the way you're describing this sales track, I would just like to say to the salon owners who'll be listening to this webinar that this is probably one you want to make sure you get your employees, if you're bringing your employees and your management staff with you, make sure they attend this session with you, because it's more important than putting them in line for free lotion samples.
Oh,
right.
Amen. I mean, Chris, that's one of my complaints over the years. I've watched people. I mean, you really hit it, John. I go to the shows, and I watch somebody walk around. Say somebody that I've met in a session. They've told me about the problems they're having with their business, and what do I see them doing? Going around with a tchotchke bag, collecting all the free samples of lotion. It makes me grind my teeth, because I'm thinking, what are you doing to keep in business? And it's just bizarre sometimes. Well, it's good that you guys are doing that. Now you got a spray session, and boy, you talk about the direction that the business is going right now. I mean, if you're not really concentrating on either EFTs or the sunless business, you're crazy.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even, 5 years ago, we still were thinking of spray tanning as being this kind of a diversification product, something you kind of offer to make a little bit more money, but it's really become something that needs to be almost as equal as your UV sales.
Yes.
Well, you've got
absolutely. So tell us about your spray tanning session, Chris. I'm interested. You already got me on the hook. Let's hear it.
So we've got the first session, and we have a whole track of spray stuff, which is new this year. So the first session we have is about creating more spray tanning customers, whether that's converting your UV customers into also doing some spray to complement their UV, or how to actually go out and market to people that probably have never even thought about getting a spray tan before, and how to get them into your salon and make them loyal customers.
Well,
that sounds like a very good session. Is it mostly aimed at the tanning salon owner who also offers spray tanning, or could current mobile spray tanning technicians also benefit from this?
I think anyone could benefit from it. I think the main audience definitely would be salons that kind of have maybe their toe is in spray right now, but they're not really making the most out of the sales they could with it.
Gotcha.
I think that's probably the main target audience of that.
Well, Chris, the big difference between having your toe in the business and making a garbage load of money off the spray is perfecting your approach to memberships, again, just like UV. Because I know a retailer that made 2 years ago, did over in one store, and this is in a major metro market, did over $100,000 that year in booth spray off of EFT memberships. I mean, that is just amazing.
Absolutely.
I'd say,
and
I don't know that he wants.
Brenda Woolley just recently did a story in Biz Weekly. She's mainly a handheld sunless spray tech, and she offers EFTs. It's where it's going, whether it's UV or sunless. EFT is the business model, and
it is.
Right.
Yeah, people got to get on the bandwagon here, because that's where the money is.
A lot of salon owners, I think, have a hard time taking that leap into EFTs with spray, because they see it as a hard cost every time someone comes in to spray. But yeah, that really is the model that I think is going to succeed, and that is what our second spray session really is going to focus on. We're going to look at how can you introduce an effective and a successful spray tan membership. So how can you do that in the right way? But then also how to really upsell spray. I think a lot of people undervalue like spray products, like lotions to take home that will help extend the life of your spray tan.
There's
a lot of opportunities.
The pre and post spray products are essential to a long-lasting spray tan. Absolutely, they'll stretch it out, and it helps you get the most of it, and it moisturizes and prepares the skin. Those products are essential.
Right.
And I would agree with you, Chris. I'm really impressed with your. I write a lot about spray tanning for Biz Weekly. So, I kind of always have my ear to the ground in that industry sector, and I'm personally very impressed to hear these these classes that you're offering in Nashville. I just want to, again, shout out to the spray tan techs who might be listening to this. Get to that EFT session that Chris's people are hosting. If you're not offering an EFT program, or even if you are, it'll help you fine-tune it. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, and Chris, you made a comment earlier about that people were afraid of the EFT on spray because they had this hard cost mentality. But, you know, one of the educations I got on this, and working with Bill Mandry from Heartland Tan, he's got to be one of the very best in the spray business, and with a couple of the retailers that were really good. One of the things that they taught me is that on average, when you're giving someone an unrestricted EFT on spray, they don't use it every day like you think they're going to. Now, occasionally you get a freak like a tanning mom that'll do something silly like that. But hopefully, you know, most of the business is not a bunch of freaks. But what they're telling me is that an EFT on spray unrestricted is around 4 to 4.5 sprays a month, or 1 a week. And if you do the things that John is saying, if you prepare your skin and you've got good aftercare products, you probably don't need to spray more than once a week. And you know,
right.
I think this
is, and you really want to train your customers, and you don't want them to walk out looking like a tan mom. So you want to train them. This is the proper amount of spray tanning you want to do at these levels with these products. That's our job, is to teach them how to get the best spray tan.
Absolutely. We've written about that in Biz Weekly. We have many spray tan artists who contribute to the magazine, and all of them, like you said, Chris, they educate their clients. Many of them have take-home materials that they give them, brochures, whatever, for properly maintaining and even preparing for their spray tan session. All this stuff is very essential. So I'm again, very glad to hear you guys are offering this this education at the show.
Well, let's get, I think there's a couple. Okay, also, Chris, you're going to talk about industry issues. And, of course, this is, if it's not frontmost of everybody's brains right now, it should be to talk about what's coming up here. And there was, John, a new memo that came out from John Overstreet of the ITA today, which I'm sure you're going to be posting on Sunbiz.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, Chris, this is something we're all concerned about, is what is the future of our industry?
Right. It's something I think a lot of people don't know where to go to even get the answers to those questions. So we do have 2 sessions. The first one is on Saturday. Joe Levy's leading that, and it's really just talking about what is it like to be a tanning salon in this new professional tanning market. It's, you know, we've matured into a place where you can't get away with some things that maybe you were doing before, and so he's going to cover that. But then on Sunday, we have a session led by some of the board members from the ASA, and they're going to kind of talk a little bit about what the ASA has been doing, and what new regulations are going to mean for salon owners, and also how they can get involved. And something that's new this year is that we have this open board meeting that the ASA is putting on Friday, which is really completely new. And any salon owner can come to that meeting, sit in there, and really get details about the things that are coming up, get details about some PR initiatives that haven't really been discussed publicly before. And that's a really good opportunity, especially if you're going to be in Nashville already. You don't have to fly to DC for a board meeting. And that's a really good opportunity for that. And
now, is that, Chris, is that for just salon owners, or can salon associates or managers, can they attend that as well?
It's mostly for salon owners. If you have like a manager that runs your salon, you know, if you have like a silent owner or whatever, then by all means we're going to let them in, I'm sure. But there is a process you can pre-register for that meeting when you're registering for Smart Tan Nashville.
Okay.
And then that way we can kind of, the ASA can go through and just make sure that the people that are registered are salon owners, and they're going to be checking badges or checking IDs and stuff on the way in, just because there have been fears in the past of people getting into those meetings that probably shouldn't be in those meetings. They end up leaking information to
The press. Yep.
Yeah, to people that aren't necessarily the target of what those meetings are about. So they're taking a lot of precautions this year to make sure that's a secure meeting.
And I think that's a good idea, Chris, because the last thing we need is some jerk writing another baloney story about tanning, and that's probably a good idea to keep an eye on who's going in there. Okay, well, and we
get enough of that as it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the Advanced Retail Academy, Rich Kozer and Georgianne Bender, these guys, I've personally seen them at least 3 times, 4 times. They're very good. They really know their stuff, and I like the fact that you're giving them the opportunity to get more into specifically what is tanning. What does this session cost, by the way?
The session on Saturday is $99. And that's for the full day session. We lowered that price from past years that we've done it just to make it a little bit more accessible. But yeah, Rich and Georgianne are great. They're the #1 compliment I think we get every year is to bring back Kaiser and Bender. One year we tried to change it up. We brought someone else in, and the feedback was, where were Kaiser and Bender this year? So we brought them back.
Now, when is this?
Industry darlings.
Chris, when is this session again?
The session is on, their big session is Friday. It's from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. And that's the Advanced Retail Academy. And they're really going to get into, like John was saying, branding strategies. That's going to be a huge part of that. They're going to talk about how to mystery shop your own salon, how to use social media, how to do email marketing better. They're going to talk a little bit about millennials and how to attract them into your salon, about staffing.
So all solid business building info, it sounds like.
Right, yeah. I mean, they really are retailing experts, so they know how to look at a business and all different aspects of it. So this session really is comprehensive. It's going to touch all those different things, and salons are going to walk away with stuff they can go and implement right away.
Well, that's good stuff. That's very good stuff. This has been good information. And, of course, that's that full-day class you're talking about on Friday. And then you're also going to have, of course, your traditional Smart Tan UV tanning certification.
Yep.
And you mentioned the Sun Tanning Association board. How about some fun stuff? I mean, of course, when you talk about Nashville Fun, if you go to Nashville and you can't have fun in Nashville, then there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, and that is a huge part. Like you were saying, it's really important to have salons actually be able to mingle with each other and be able to share some stories or share some success or get some help on something they're having trouble with. So, of course, we have our kickoff welcome reception that's sponsored by Devoted Creations and Cosmetico, and that is the big, everyone's stuffed in the bar and getting their drinks, and we have some prizes that we give away at that, and it's a good way to get the weekend going. Then many people take that party from there to down Broadway, so that goes for a while. And then, of course, New Sunshine has their industry party that they've been doing for the past several years at the Wild Horse, which is just crazy. They rent out that entire venue, and it's a ton of fun. So,
Chris, it's a ton of fun, but it's also very loud.
It is very loud, right?
So it probably means you have to have several adult beverages to get through it.
Well, if you go, I found if
highly
you go
recommended.
to the top few levels, because there's like 3 or 4 levels to that.
There is.
Bar. If you go upstairs, it's a little bit quieter.
Yeah, I've had dinner with my clients up at that top level, one of the top levels, and you can actually talk to each other and hear each other. It's amazing. Well, you got the wheel of Smart Tan. We're giving away goodies. That's at 1:00 on Sunday.
Yep. So we got tons of prizes we're giving away. Lots of lotions and lamps, a fit body wrap, and then something that's new this year. We're giving away some vacation packages. So we're trying to think of what's something that as a salon owner, it's nice to get some lotion. It's nice to get some stuff for your business, but maybe it's also nice to get a free vacation. So we have one vacation we're giving away to Las Vegas for a few nights. We have a Bahamas cruise, and then we even have a trip to Hawaii. So,
wow.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's going to be Yeah, that's gonna be pretty cool to give that stuff away.
In the past, Chris.
Well, somebody's going to get lucky in Nashville.
Yeah, and if they win, John, if they win the trip to Hawaii, they're going to get lucky in Hawaii too. Okay,
That's true.
moving on. But in the past, Chris, people like Ergoline and some of the manufacturers have given drawings out for beds. Maybe are they not doing that this year?
Not part of this big giveaway. I'm not sure if anyone's doing that in their booth
okay.
or not, but for this big giveaway this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll take a trip to Hawaii. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Well, listen, Chris, I want to thank you. And John, always good to have us all together again on these webinars. Chris, good information. It's going to be a great show. I think you guys are going to do very well. And any last comments, Chris, you want to share with everybody?
Just make sure you register before Wednesday, before the 31st. You can save some money on your registration.
What does it cost? What does it cost after Wednesday?
Oh, I want to say $159. I don't know exactly off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, I thought you were also going to give them the advice of make sure before you come to the show that you get lots of sleep beforehand.
Yeah, you probably will not sleep much there. I know I
probably won't
really get any sleep over there. So,
John, anything you want to throw in?
Just wanted to ask Chris if there's going to be any roundtable discussions this year.
We don't have anything officially set up. We had done that a couple years ago, and we had a sort of one last year. But we kind of just want to make that happen in the sessions. I guess I didn't mention we've extended the session times this year. Because in the past we've had 50-minute sessions, and then there was not enough time for questions and answers. So we've extended those to actually be a full hour that you're actually in each of those classrooms. So there's plenty of time for the presentation and then some questions and answers.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no official roundtable stuff this year.
Well,
okay, I just wondered because that's always a very, not only a very popular trade show attraction, but also very beneficial to those salon owners who attend. So I was hoping you'd have one, but it sounds like you have the Q&A covered at the end of each session, so that's good.
Right.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, John, in a way, there is roundtable discussion because you've always got the lunch areas off the side to the main convention.
Right.
And what happens, I know a lot of times I'll sit down to grab a sandwich, and the next thing I know, I've got 2 or 3 retailers sitting down there and saying, oh, listen, we heard you on a webinar. We'd like to ask you this or that. It's almost like sometimes I should sit down with a little sign that says, this table is talking about human resource management.
True.
You kind of have it in a way. I mean, there's a lot of discussion that goes on during those lunch times. But Chris, again, thank you very much for being on here on SunBiz. And John, of course, I'd like to think our comments were both wonderful and well educated as always. So
absolutely.
And this will be up on. We should be up on the site here pretty quick. When people call, you'll be able to.
As soon as we can get it up there, we're going to get it up there.
Okay. All right. Chris, thank you, and we'll see you in Nashville. John, thanks again.
Right.
You're welcome. Bye-bye, guys.
All right.